It's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. It is Wednesday, June 10th, and I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about last night's City Council meeting. So last night being Tuesday, June 9th, the City Council voted to approve the budget for fiscal 27 that was brought to the council by the mayor. So the budget going into FY27 is for $232,777,720. So I would say by FY28, we're going to be right there at $250 million a year. And anyway, so that's the budget. And the meeting got pretty interesting in the beginning because what ended up happening is one of the at-large councilors, Kathy Amuso, put a motion forward to reduce the city council budget by $1,430. And that part of their budget, the $1,430, is for like a travel lodging stipend to attend the MMA conference, which is the Massachusetts Municipal Association conference. It's like almost like a trade show. But they do pick up a lot of educational information at that conference that is valuable as their position on the city council. So I wasn't for cutting that, but I understood where Councilor Amuso was coming from, that they have asked for all these other departments to make cuts and that they were not willing to themselves. So where it got heated was Councilor Persip said, you can't do that. This is a yes or no vote on the entire budget. Are you willing to hold up the budget for $1,430 or not? Councilor Warren chimed in and said he disagreed with that this was a recommendation by the mayor, not a mayoral order, and that was incorrect. Councilor Cunningham said the same thing. It got a little heated back and forth between Councilor Cunningham and the city council president. Councilor Cunningham asked at one point to move this to June 15th. To do a special meeting. And I'm going to mention this real briefly, and it's not meant to knock anybody. But when Councilor Cunningham and Councilor Persip were going back and forth, and then Councilor Cunningham suggested that they move this to June 15th because he disagreed with the fact that the city council could not vote to reduce certain things. And Councilor Persip insisted that, no, this is a yes or no vote on the budget. That's it. You can't nitpick line items. You can't go through things like that. The time to do that was during the budget hearings, and we're beyond that. That did sound odd to me. But so when Councilor Cunningham suggested that they reduce this or they're allowed to take a vote to reduce this, or they move this forward to a special meeting on June 15th. So it would still be within the timeline to get the budget passed. What I didn't like is the city clerk, okay? There was many times when Councilor Cunningham was speaking, she was turning around, she was looking at him. She laughed when he said to reduce it. When Councilor Cunningham suggested moving it to June 15th. And look, I'm not trying to pick on the city clerk at all, but that type of behavior when there's cameras on you and you're watching that, because I was there in person, but I also watched it at home. Before I did this, I watched it again, and it's not a good look. It almost like, I felt like in a weird way that he was being picked on. And I felt like it was very unprofessional. The city clerk, usually you never hear from the city clerk at a meeting unless other than, she's calling off the items on the agenda or taking a roll call for a vote, something like that. It wasn't, I don't think that's a good look. It doesn't seem right. I would be upset if I was a city councilor and then I saw that meeting on TV and the city clerk was laughing when I made turning around and looked right at me and then laughed. I would not be okay with that. Anyway, that stood out to me, and I didn't think that was professional. But that being said, they took a recess, a 10-minute recess. The city solicitor came back and said, actually, to City Council President Earl Persip, you were wrong, that the City Council can vote to reduce parts of the budget. They just can't vote at this stage in the game to increase it. But they can vote to reduce it, and then from that point, the mayor can accept it, or he can veto it, and they'll go from there. So Councilor Musso withdrew her motion to reduce that 1430. Councilor Cunningham put a motion forward to parrot that, and it went to vote anyway. And it didn't pass to reduce it. And no one really thought it was going to, but I understood Councilor Cunningham's point. That should have been voted on, and it ultimately was. Some of the arguments made, like, again, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but Councilor Lampiazzi said, it's simply not true that we're not taking a cut. Meaning, since the city councilors have not received a pay raise, and I don't know, it's got to be about 40 years now, 35 to 40 years. Their pay has pretty much stayed consistent at $8,000 a year. They do have access to health insurance and things like that, but $8,000 a year. It's not a job. To compare that to like a department head somewhere else or a full-time city employee, it's not a job. It's an elected position that you run for, you want to be part of. It's almost like a civic duty of giving back to your community. If you're a counselor and you're not in a financial position to accept that $8,000 a year, because they all knew what the pay was when they did it, then don't do it. If you can't afford to give your time back to the city, then don't do it. Because again, that $8,000 a year is kind of like a token of appreciation almost. It's a way to help you cover expenses for stepping up and running for city council. To compare that, saying we don't get cost of living increases and everything, that irritates me. Councilor Costa said basically the same thing. And she said, effectively, we're taking a cut every year because we don't accept a raise. We don't get cost of living increases. That's insanity to me. I mean, I'd like to ask some of these counselors, Arizona iced tea has been 99 cents a can since 1992. And since 1992, look at how much the cost of living has went up. Look at how much materials have went up, production, labor, all that. So does that mean by them leaving it at 99 cents a can since 1992, that they're effectively lowering the price every year? Come on. It's ridiculous to suggest that city councilors deserve cost of living wage increases. If you're doing the city council as your full-time job, you might want to rethink what you're doing. I mean, if you're relying on that as your full-time job to pay your bills, that's crazy to me. And I think that's a poor comparison. That is a giving back position. And you kind of get tired of hearing the victim side of it. Like when it's an elected position like that you beg for, you get signs printed, you have standouts, vote for me, you go out and get signatures, I'm going to fight for you and I'm going to do all these things. And then you get there and say, well, we haven't gotten a raise in years. And that's, come on. That's not what people want to hear. That shouldn't even be something discussed, because that does get people mad. It doesn't make them feel sorry for city councilors. But nonetheless, they didn't reduce the 1430. Nobody is getting a pay raise, and that's not on the table, at least not that I know of anytime soon. and we'll see things that happen next year. I did find it interesting because, as many of you know, I've been talking about going into fiscal 28. Next year is projected to be a horrible year. The state is projected to have a $4 to $4.5 billion deficit by next year. That's almost 3 times higher than the deficit right now. With that being said, Councilor Costa talked about it's going to be very difficult to meet these challenges with Proposition 2.5. And I've been warning people about that. I really honestly think it's very possible for Pittsfield. We've seen smaller communities already in Berkshire County do it. Richmond did an override on Proposition 2.5. I think it's very possible by next year you're going to see Pittsfield put a request forward to do an override on Prop 2.5. And Proposition 2.5 is pretty simple. It says that your taxes cannot be increased by more than 2.5% of what it was the previous year. And giving them an override on that once you go to the trough once, you're going to keep going back. That'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. But nonetheless, none of these changes happened, so the budget did go through at $232,777,720, and that's where we're at. And it was, other than that, it was a pretty uneventful meeting. One of the positive things that I thought was positive that was talked about was David Carver of CT Management did get approval for a TIF in the amount of $179,000 over a 10-year period to redo the former St. Joe's High School into 19 apartments, with 4 of them being lower income. So it'll be mixed rent, but 19 units, 4 of them lower income, and then the bottom part of the building will be retail or commercial space, I should say, with a potential that was being talked about, with the potential for a daycare program, working with the YMCA to have a daycare program there. But that is going to be housing. It's a $10 million project, $179,000 TIF over 10 years. That's like Councilor Kenny Warren said, it's about $18,000 a year. Councilor Warren suggested that it was a smart investment for the city to allow that, considering that building has not been on the tax roll in 100 years or so, because it was owned by the Catholic Diocese of Springfield, which they're tax exempt. I get that, even though as a high school that employed a lot of people. So it did generate money. I mean, it employed teachers and custodians and all that, which is money that recirculated back into the economy. And you better believe those individuals paid taxes. But I do understand what they're saying. The building itself will be bringing in tax revenue. And he suggested that it wasn't a make or break amount, that Mr. Carver, David Carver, probably has that $18,000 a year in his couch cushions. And all I can say to that is, to Mr. Carver, if you do watch this, let me know if you're ever getting rid of one of your couches. I'm in the market for one. Please. So that was pretty much it. So there you go with the budget. That's where we're at. I've got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. I finally started this week on my promotions for some of our pizzerias in the area. I'm excited about that. I have a interview coming up with Mike Fenton, who is running for the Governor's Council. And I'm in the works of doing another interview from Park Square with the district attorney, Sheriff Bowler, and the Pittsfield Chief of Police. I just have to finalize some things on that. I saw the chief last night. I didn't get to talk to him. He was out of there before I had a chance to. But I am working on doing another one of those. The last time I did that was with Chief Tommy Dolly, Tim Shagru, the DA, and Sheriff Bowler, the sheriff of Berkshire County. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting that done, and just a bunch of other stuff. To all of you that have given to my fundraiser, I cannot thank you enough. It's needed more this year than ever. Just SD cards, which I use a lot of SD cards for all my cameras doing this. If you look at what's happened to the cost of SD cards, the cards I was using, I was getting them for about $39 to $49 a piece. Those have skyrocketed to $120, $130 a piece. It's unbelievable what is happening with any materials for storage, anything that digital storage that requires any RAM or anything like that. It's crazy what's happening. And that's all attributed to AI, to these AI companies grabbing everything up. It's amazing how expensive that has become. It's scary. I almost had a seizure when I went to buy some SD cards and they were $129 a piece. I was in shock. So anyways, to those of you that have given to the fundraiser, again, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to do a big thank you coming up soon, something special. To those of you that can give and you see the GoFundMe up there, anything you could give is more than appreciated. It helps me cover all this stuff. It's a busy year with a lot of requests, and there's a lot of other stuff coming up, including the Strikeout Cancer event at Clapp Park on June 27th. Also, thank you to the mayor and the councilors, Kathy Moody, Pete White, former councilor Karen Kalinowski, and Mayor Marchetti that showed up to the Harry A. Bateman Memorial Jimmy Fund Fishing Derby. That's one of my favorite events of the year. Big thank you to the Bateman family and all the volunteers that worked so hard on that one. What a fantastic event, another huge turnout. I'm looking forward to next year's. So if you haven't seen that, I did a short couple posts on that right below this one if you're on Facebook or TikTok. And that's it. So that's it for now. Great weather. And there'll be a lot to discuss, a lot coming up with all this stuff. But that's it for your budget for FY27. And that's where we're at. So pay attention, get involved. School committee meeting tonight that I'll be attending, and I'm sure there'll be a video coming out tomorrow or the day after discussing that. So get involved, pay attention, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll catch y'all in the next day or two.